Yeah, not about double vision this
Or
week.
any Foreigner song.
Or any Foreigner song. It's about the double features. Welcome. This is the Fright Club podcast.
I'm Hope Madden.
And I'm George Wolf, and we're from madwolf.com, and we are back live at the Gateway Film Center, High Street in Columbus, Ohio. And this is extra exciting. We've got so much going on tonight. We are going to talk about our favorite horror, non-horror double features from the same director. So we've got a great couple of them to watch. And we just found out today that we'll look at a little pre-show. We've got the brand new music video for Radiohead, which is directed by one of our favorites, Paul Thomas Anderson.
And in 35 millimeter. And you know why?
Why?
Because Gateway loves us.
Because they love us.
They do. They got us a 35 millimeter print of Kill List. They're opening High Rise a day early just for us. And we get to be the place where the event where they premiere the Paul Thomas Anderson Radiohead video.
Yeah, so we got a great night coming up tonight. But you know what? Last week we talked about home invasion horror on the podcast, and I think that seemed to touch a nerve.
It really did. I think you're right. And something that we actually mentioned when we were talking about them is that those particular horror films are less fantastical, right? They're not supernatural. There's not monsters. They're very realistic, and it's funny because the reaction we got, even some of our longtime listeners, people who are really big horror fans, the Howards, for example, hadn't seen any of those movies.
Yeah.
And it's because they hit a little close to home.
They do, and some of the situations in those movies we talked about, very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Very uncomfortable. It could really delve into people's actual fears.
Yeah, yeah,
that,
and
like
not,
you said, could really happen.
Not in a way that has that sort of layer of safety that makes it very fictional. These are they're a little too. And our number one Funny Games, which was actually number 1 and 2 because it was either the original or the. A lot of people, while I don't think there's any arguing that it's a brilliant film, a lot of people hate that movie because it just frustrates and upsets you, and then it's over. There's no resolution that's happy. I mean, it's just like, God.
And it intentionally pokes the audience throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's just, hey, you're involved in this, and it makes it even doubly uncomfortable, which I think is what adds to its brilliance.
Right.
But I can definitely see that. A lot of people do not like those movies at all. And right on time, we got a nice link pointed out by Brandon, longtime Fright Clubber Brandon.
Yeah, I'm excited about this one. I can't wait for it to come out now.
A new home invasion horror movie coming out that has a very familiar gimmick, I guess I should say.
Sure.
Is that the home invasion, the home is inhabited by a blind person. Now, this time it's a blind man, an older blind man. And, of course, you hear that, and you immediately think Wait Until Dark.
Which we did talk about a little bit last week.
Which we talked a little bit about, Audrey Hepburn, and then the young Alan Arkin breaking in. But so I'm guessing that this one will probably be a lot more intense.
Did you watch the trailer?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it looks intense.
So, you can take and
it's the same director who remade Evil Dead. I know you loved the Evil Dead remake.
Very much so. Yeah. Very much so. So you can definitely take a classic idea like that and give it a new, healthy spin.
For sure.
Fingers are crossed. That one could be fun. Don't Breathe. I don't think do we have a release date on that?
No.
Okay. So thanks for all the great comments. I was, I guess, a little surprised about the amount of nerve touching that the home invasion horror did. But it's a good topic. So,
it is.
So thanks a lot. Definitely saw that as one of our more popular podcast in a while. And speaking of, we love getting feedback. We always talk about that. Hit us up on Twitter, and we humbly ask if you feel so moved to chime in with a rating on iTunes. We love you. Mm-hmm. But we got such a great letter.
Yeah, we got an email. He emailed us directly. Dave did just last week, a couple days ago, actually. And he had been looking for a horror podcast and to keep him from getting bored as he drove to and from work, and he stumbled on ours, and he loves it. So welcome, Dave, and thanks for letting us know.
Is that your brother, Dave?
No, it's not my brother, Dave, because he would not know how to use the internet to find something, nor would he have any idea how to come up with a podcast.
No, Dave, thank you for those kind words, and I'm glad to have you as a Fright Clubber, and maybe one day we'll see you here at the Gateway when we do this Fright Club Live in future months. But we got a great one coming up tonight. We're going to start out with the director that we are spotlighting tonight, and it's a double feature, horror, non-horror, from Ben Wheatley. And we're going to start with our first movie tonight, and that is Kill List.
They're bad people. They should suffer.
don't know how many of you have seen this movie. It's just brilliant. It's such a great film. Well, I'm so excited that we get a chance to see it today.
Yeah, very excited. And that is because every time we've talked about this movie, we always come back to that phrase because I think for you too, but definitely for me, when they say that early on, we don't want to give away too much, that
the
just
entire
turned
film pivots.
everything on its head.
Yeah, it absolutely does. Because it's funny. It starts off just a really well-crafted, kind of gritty indie crime thriller out of Britain. And I love those. I'm all about those. I'm a Guy Ritchie fan. But then all of a sudden, it just takes this weird hard left, and you spend the whole rest of the time going, what in the hell is happening right now? But in the most satisfying way. Those impenetrable accents, they don't really help with the sleuthing, just FYI. But it's really one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, and there's such a weird mystery going on, like what the heck is happening? And it leads to an ending that I think for a lot of people brings up more questions.
Yeah, I think so too.
It also brings,
but not in a bad way.
No, not in a bad way. It also calls to mind some other movies, maybe a little Wicker Man, maybe a little.
I think that we should not tell them what other movies it calls to mind.
Okay. Well, one that I was just talking with Maya about earlier, and
so Maya knows, but the rest of you.
But yeah, it's so well done. I love movies that almost become a different genre within their own running time, and this one certainly does. And
it really announced Ben Wheatley. He'd made one film before this, A Field in England, which is great, but it really announced him as a directing presence. And then later, the double feature that we recommend, obviously because it's the one we're showing, is Killiston High Rise.
What are you doing in there?
Lang was satisfied with life in the high rise. He felt able to relax, more in charge of himself.
I put all my energies into this town.
You built all this.
The ones who are the real danger were the self-contained types like you.
One thing was certain. Lang would surrender to a logic more powerful than reason.
The project has been floating around forever because it's one of those, I guess, books that people thought for one reason or another, you can't film that.
Right.
That's just...
Well, J.G. Ballard, it's almost like, people thought you couldn't make Naked Lunch. People just... There
or
are
that
certain...
Cloud Atlas.
Yes.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me that Ben Wheatley tried Cronenberg, my beloved Cronenberg. He did make Ballard's Crash a few years ago.
Yeah.
It's probably the only David Cronenberg film I don't care for, to be honest with you. But I do like Ballard, but he doesn't translate to film very well, I don't think. But I really think that Wheatley did a great job with it. I think that it is chaos. And we're not going to say very much about that film because everybody's going to watch it. Not very many people have had the chance to see it because it doesn't open until this weekend. So we're not going to talk too much about it except to say that it is sort of... It's just lunacy.
Yeah, and it's funny. I think the project, the rights to the book have been floating around Hollywood since the 70s with different directors, including Nicholas Roeg, attached to different adaptations. And finally now comes to the big screen. And even though it is, I think you just mentioned, on demand, it's so good that you're getting a chance to see it on the big screen. It looks fantastic.
It does look fantastic.
The performances are great.
Yes.
And it's just this grand social experiment within this high rise. So, again, we'll leave it at that. But
a lot of people are very excited. Somebody I know of who's right there with curly hair, Tom Hiddleston. He's a very popular young man. But Jeremy Irons kills me in this movie. Oh, my God, he's so great.
Yeah, it probably is of no surprise that he almost steals the film. He's so great as kind of the architect behind the whole thing. So yes, that's our double feature tonight. Ben Wheatley.
You know what though? If you ever, there are so many really great directors who also made horror films, or vice versa, like really great horror film directors who moved out and branched out into something more mainstream. That didn't make the list, but that are awesome. At one that I'm going to recommend, Jeremy Saulnier. Because if you feel like seeing The Green Room, which is currently playing here at the Gateway Film Center, you totally should.
Good stuff.
How awesome is Green Room? And then for like a color-coordinated double bill, Blue Ruin, which was his movie from a couple years ago, which is just awesome.
Yeah.
Really, really great. Or, you can go Scorsese. Dips into the horror with Cape Fear, and then you can just circle right back to Taxi Driver. There are a lot of, obviously, Scorsese movies, but let's be honest, Taxi Driver is the one you want to watch.
Yeah, there are. There are definitely a lot to choose from
there's so many.
But
we skipped to number 4.
That's our Ben Wheatley twofer for number 5. And number 4, we go to another director we've talked a lot about on the Fright Club podcast, New Zealand's own Peter Jackson, and that is Dead Alive.
On this picturesque block, in this manicured home, something horrifying is haunting Lionel.
Your mother's dead, Lionel.
Now, whatever Mom's got
Who's your mother?
has caught on with the neighbors. How do you kill something that's already dead?
Your mother ate my dog!
Dead alive.
There's a little bit of blood in that movie.
A little bit.
In fact, I think probably until the recent remake of Evil Dead, that was regarded as the bloodiest movie ever, right?
It was actually, and
especially that lawnmower scene.
Yeah, it's the lawnmower scene that puts it over the top. That's easily my favorite scene. Oh, poor Lionel Cosgrove. Oh, I love him so much. Just milk toasty Lionel Cosgrove. And then my favorite thing is the scene. If you're not familiar, his mom, his oppressive mom. She follows him on a date to the zoo, and she gets bitten by a Sumatran rat monkey. So don't mistake it for an ugly lump of clay or some sort of mutant Muppet, because it's a dangerous varmint. Oh, my God. And then, Peter Jackson, who went on to be just, Lord of the Rings dude and everything, and obviously very, very well regarded, and he's just got a whole garage full of Oscars. But I love his early movies because, and this is the best, for his first two movies were just
nuts.
Just bloody, stupid in a great way.
Bloody and stupid.
He just invented the Kiwi splatter horror films, which is, and they've gone on afterwards to make millions. They've made many. There are not that many people who live there, so very few filmmakers, honestly. But it's really sort of it's their horror output. It's really, and he was the one who made that mark for them, which is great. And then the second movie that we're going to talk about that we pair this up with, which is really funny. If you've seen this movie, you really have to watch his very next effort right after you finish watching this, because the next film he made is Heavenly Creatures.
Mrs. Reaper, may I come in? Your daughter appears to have formed a rather unwholesome attachment to Juliet.
We're not going to be separated.
I know what to do about Mother. We don't want to go to too much trouble. Some sort of accident.
It's all frightfully romantic.
Honestly, I know how many Oscars he's won. For me, Heavenly Creatures is his masterpiece. It is a really perfectly put together film, and it's a true crime tale, but it's not lurid. And what they really explore is just sort of the hysteria of adolescence and adolescent best friendship, and he kind of introduced the world to Kate Winslet.
Yeah,
thank you.
No, wait, you got to hold that line for when I say kill list. See, you're jumping the gun. It's the debut of Kate Winslet and Melanie Linsky, and they both were cast. Well, obviously they're talented, but also for their physical appearance, they were both close to the real girls involved in the story.
Ooh.
And they really kept everything. They used parts of the script came right from the girls' diaries.
Wow.
It's very, very true to the case. But like you said, it's not lurid at all, even though it's a very unsettling murder tale.
And I think, Peter Jackson's imagination, the film goes into elements that are absolute fantasy. And it's just his ability to do that, his just vivid imagination. I think it didn't seem false given this sort of, insanity where the girls went, where their obsession took them, and the sort of this fantasy life that they were living that seemed very real enough to them that they would commit a murder. And it's just a beautiful, brilliant, amazing film.
Yeah, and it was also filmed. Most of the filming locations were right there where it all happened. So they kept it extremely authentic. And when you're talking about a Peter Jackson double feature, you would think we would do one of the Lord of the Rings. But
why didn't we?
Because I haven't seen any of them.
Yeah, he won't. He
Not
just totally
a
won't.
one.
Not one. I know, right?
And I say that.
And you call yourself
I get a little bit of
movie
applause.
nerd.
I get a little love back there.
No.
I do that just to get those gasps.
Yeah,
because
that's
Somebody just asked me the other day, somebody at work said, is there any movie that everybody else loves, everybody else has seen that you haven't seen? I was like, yes, any of the Lord of the Rings movies. Yeah. So there you go. Have at it. You can, throw your stone. But
I hear
I'm
you,
sure
brother.
they're great. But truly, if you haven't seen Heavenly Creatures, it really is worth checking out. And that is part 2 of our Peter.
And if you haven't
Peter Jackson
seen
entry.
Dead Alive, get on it.
Or Brain Dead. You might find it by Brain Dead, right?
Yeah.
From 1992. So that's number 4 in our double feature entry. And we're moving along up to number 3, her beloved David Cronenberg. And we'll start with Scanners.
There are 4 billion people on Earth. 237 are scanners. They'll control your mind, conquer your will, manipulate your body like a toy. You begin to self-destruct. You pray it will end, and it will. Scanners, their thoughts can kill.
I know, it's the exploding head scene that always gets you, but it's also the horrendous acting.
Oh, stop it.
Come on.
All right. No, Michael Ironside, actually.
He's all right.
Yeah, he's on fire in this movie. I mean, he's just rabid, and he almost always comes off that way, and certainly it fits this character. It fits this character so well. And, Cronenberg has made a million really great movies, a lot of them horror movies. And I just chose this one because it was like the one that really put him on the map globally. It's not necessarily his best movie. I mean, obviously not his best movie, but it's not necessarily his best horror movie either. But it's always fun to watch, especially watch with George, because he spends the whole time like shaking his head, the whole,
That guy. He's so bad.
Oh, like he's no worse than Jennifer O'Neill.
All right. But I think back in 2007, they had announced that they were going to make another one, a remake of the film. But it really didn't get very far because the producer who had the rights said he wasn't going to make it without Cronenberg's blessing, which he did not get.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, me either.
No,
yeah.
I don't see. Which is kind of funny because he made a remake. The Fly was a remake, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
I could see this being ripe for a remake, though.
Sure. The movie that we think that you should watch, so I think the all-time greatest David Cronenberg film, Eastern Promises.
If the diary should find its way to the police.
Okay, boss. You don't have to worry. Police won't find anything.
She was 14, just a child.
Forget any of this ever happened. Stay away from people like me.
You've read the diary. How can you keep doing what you're doing? I need to know who you are.
Show some respect.
This is respect.
If you watched any Lord of the Rings movies, you would have a broader experience of how great Viggo Mortensen is in movies. But he was nominated for an Oscar for Eastern Promises, and rightly so. He was just magnificent. The entire cast is so great.
Well, I do know this, and this might help me on the nerd scale. In Eastern Promises, Viggo plays a guy who's part of the Russian mob, and a lot of their in prison life, they have to get all these tattoos, these prison tattoos. So every
tattoo tells your sin.
Exactly. He's shirtless a lot, and of course, in the famous naked scene, he's naked. But one of the tattoos you can see is what's it called, Elvish.
Elvish.
Elvish?
Yeah.
Everybody that worked on Lord of the Rings, the cast, they got one. An actual tattoo, so you can see that it's there among all his prison tattoos.
Some tattoo artists made a ton of money because there are like 400,000 people in that cast.
Well, maybe all the major players,
yeah.
But so that I had to get a little bit of a Lord of the Rings trivia in there, so there it is. But you're right, it's a great movie. The
excellent Vincent Cassel, the always excellent Vincent
Naomi
Cassel.
Watts.
Oh yeah. Armin Mueller-Stahl, he's the one. He just, oh my God, he's terrifying and amazing. He's such a great
it's all
menace.
part. A young girl's diary falls into the hands of Naomi Watts, and it has secrets in it that the head of this Russian mob does not want to get out. And it's tense and so well acted and so well shot. It's really one.
And it's one of the first. It's one of the first one of his mainstream films where it's hard to tell it's a Cronenberg film, except for this one scene early on when this 14-year-old pregnant girl walks into a grocery store and then just gives birth, and you're like, oh no, I know this guy.
Yeah, body horror.
This is the Scanners guy.
All over the place. Yeah, and it's really one. You're right. For a lot of it, it doesn't seem like a typical Cronenberg movie, but boy, it's so well done.
It is,
and definitely second part of our Cronenberg horror, non-horror double feature. That's from 2007, Eastern Promises. So let's go up one more, and number 2 on our list, the great Stanley Kubrick. And we start with The Shining.
Mr. Grady, you were the caretaker here. I recognize you. I saw your picture in the newspapers. You, chopped your wife and daughter up into little bits. And, then you blew your brains out.
I'm sorry to differ with you, sir. But you are the caretaker. You've always been the caretaker. I should know, sir. I've always been here.
The Shining, which we've talked about a lot, obviously. It's one of the granddaddies of them all for such good reason.
Yeah. We actually had an argument, and it's funny because a lot of times people will get upset with me about where I fall on whether a film is a horror movie or a non-horror movie. I get a lot of angry tweets about.
What?
And sometimes these really nice men pick fights with me, and their wives
Some
have
of
to
them
stop
are in this room.
About how I, think a movie falls on the scale. And it's a funny thing because my all-time favorite Kubrick film is A Clockwork Orange. Actually, it's one of my all-time favorite films of anybody's. I wanted that to be our horror movie. I wanted it to be the one that we did instead of The Shining. And he said it's not a horror movie.
Yeah, I don't consider A Clockwork Orange a horror movie. There are certainly horrific elements in it.
Singing in the rain.
Yeah, I just me personally. So I don't know.
But then he wouldn't let it be the non-horror one. He had to have this one.
You're acting like I have some control over this. I wouldn't let her. The fact is, she threw me this one bone because the second part of the Kubrick film is one of my all-time favorites. But before we get to that, I mean, The Shining. What else can be said? It's so perfect in so many ways.
It is.
Yeah. You get all the iconic images that have become,
the guy in the bear suit. Nice.
Yeah.
And of course the creepy twins. That's everybody's favorite, right? The creepy twins.
Creepy twins, the blood.
Blood usually gets off on the 3rd floor.
What? All the different crazy theories that people have about what it means. So that one definitely Stanley Kubrick, 1980s, The Shining. And the one that I somehow, we arm wrestled, I guess, that I won this argument. A masterpiece to me is from 1968, 2001, A Space Odyssey.
The 9000 series is the most reliable computer ever made. We are all foolproof and incapable of error.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
What's the problem?
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
Such a great movie. I think one of the science fiction masterpieces still today. Although, when it came out in 1968, it did not get a good reception. In fact, Arthur C. Clarke, who wrote the short story it's based on, said, if you understand the film completely, we failed. We wanted to raise far more questions than we answered. And I think that's probably true.
Yeah.
But it's beautifully shot. So much of it, I think it has about well over an hour of dialogue-free scenes.
Yeah,
but there
it's
are
amazing.
just such iconic visuals, scenes. You've got Hal. You've got all the eyeball blinking and then going into the black hole full of stars.
That's the thing about Hal, though. Hal is scary as shit.
Hal is great.
Hal is so terrifying, and then in such a perfect way. Very famously, Hannibal Lecter. That's what he
the
based
calm
that on,
demeanor.
The calm.
Yeah,
and also I think Kevin Spacey in Moon is clearly based on
very much
based on Hal.
so.
I mean, I think that there are so many things about this film that are iconic, but for me personally, I think Hal is probably the thing that stays with you the longest.
Yeah,
and then you told me
great
something
movie.
fascinating. Obviously, the score from this is brilliant and amazing, right? But originally, he wanted Pink Floyd to do the score. How cool would that have been?
Yeah, they were approached about
that would have been so cool.
But it's hard to imagine now without that.
Maybe if we got
main
really
theme.
high, we could imagine it.
I bet we could. And then we'll put on the Wizard of Oz and we'll just bake, man. But 2001, that is part 2 of our Stanley Kubrick double feature. One more to go, and it is William Friedkin at the top. And, of course, we're going to go with The Exorcist.
You tell me you know for a fact that an exorcism wouldn't do any good. You tell me that.
The
Kurosawa is mine.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.
You'd like that?
Intensely.
The power of Christ compels you.
It might be my favorite horror movie ever, really.
It's pretty near flawless, and it's kind of funny how well it has aged. And I think some of the scenes that were the most iconic when it first came out, with the head turning and the soup spitting and all, those don't age as well. But then there are other scenes. Yeah, the crucifix. Yikes.
Yeah.
And, Captain Howdy. I mean, there are so many things about that movie.
And one of the things I love the best is it's slow build. It really takes a long time to get going, which nowadays you don't see as much because it really tries. I think today's audiences, a lot of them want to get at it. This one builds very, very slowly.
And Friedkin does it beautifully with the way he uses his camera in the early when they're out in the desert and these huge, glorious, wide shots, and then when they're running around the streets of Washington and the streets of New York, and they come in a little bit, but then when they're in the bedroom, it's like you're so close and it's so cold and uncomfortable and cramped. It just brings. It's like, first you're just this room, and then it's like, devil is right here!
Right, and you're confined.
Really creepy.
One of the many, many things that he does so well for that movie. But the second part, I don't know how many of you are aware of this movie, but man, we love it. And it's William Friedkin from 2011. Matthew McConaughey. He should have been nominated for an Oscar for this. Called Killer Joe.
Mom's got a $50,000 life insurance policy. Killer Joe's a professional. He'll do this right.
My payment is $25,000 in cash, no exceptions.
That's not our problem.
And what is your problem?
We have a problem with the advance.
No exceptions. Conversation is finished. Of course, we never discussed the possibility of a retainer.
Hey, man, you talking about my sister?
Is that who she is? It smells heavenly. Who would like to say grace?
Hard to believe from watching that trailer. It is so darkly funny.
It is.
I mean, the night I saw it, I think it was in this theater, I was sitting in the top row just laughing, and there was stone silence, and the rest of them like, oh, this is funny, people. It's funny. And McConaughey is fantastic.
Oh, my God, he's so great. The whole cast. Gina Gershon.
You'll never look at fried chicken the same way again, let me tell you that.
Or canned pumpkin.
Or canned pumpkin,
wow.
Yeah, that is definitely one to check out. Killer Joe, that's William Friedkin from 2011. And that is our top horror, non-horror tandem. All right, we got to get out of the way. We got to get this going. But we've got some great stuff coming up soon.
We do. In a couple of weeks, we are going to join another Columbus-based horror movie podcast called Get It Together. Pete Stroop and Dave Huff. We are going to go on their podcast and talk about Sleepaway Camp, which one of us likes a lot better than the other one. And then they're going to be on our podcast, where we're going to talk about coming-of-age horror.
Yeah, nice. And I guess what they do, their twist is that on their podcast, they give advice to the characters and in the ridiculous situations that they find themselves. So that should be fun.
Plenty of ridiculous situations in Sleepaway Camp.
There are plenty. Yeah. All right. So that should be fun. A little cross promotion there. That's always good.
And actually, as far as that goes, we are going to do some podcast hopping with Corey, our senior Aussie correspondent, Corey Metcalf. He's got the triple cast over on Golden Spiral Media. He's going to be on our show, and we're going to be on his show, and we're going to talk some slasher sequels.
All right. He loves those slashers.
He does.
I'll tell you what. Okay, all that's coming up. As we said, keep the conversation going. Hit us up on Twitter at Mad Wolf Columbus on Facebook, and we got to get to it. Great night tonight at the Gateway Film Center. We're going to watch a video, then we're going to watch some movies. So until next week, I'm George Wolf.
I'm Hope Madden.
And this is the Fright Club Podcast. Say it with us.
Stay frightful, my friends. Woo! Thank you guys so much for coming out.
Roll it.